All right. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good Sunday. Lovely to see your faces. So we have the wonderful Catherine here tonight with us. She's going to be talking about things from a judge's perspective. I've got some questions for her. And if we've got some time at the end, we might do a few little critiques so people can get some ideas about things that judges are looking for and that kind of stuff. If anyone has any questions for Catherine, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on it. And we can either, if it's relevant to what we're talking about, bring it up at the time, or we can ask some questions at the end. Wonderful. All right, so let's get started. So Catherine, thank you so much again for joining us tonight and for sharing your expertise with us. Can you tell us, for the people that maybe don't know you, a little bit about you, like where are you based and what do you typically photograph, how long you've been a photographer, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, cool. I won't dwell on it too long, but just briefly, I'm based in Wellington and set up my photography business in 2008, yes. So yeah, been a photographer for quite some time. My main thing is photographing people, really. That's always been something that's really fascinated me, and I just love that every face is so different, and then every face is different from second to second as well. So there's this wonderful challenge in just meeting all these cool people. Really enjoy that. So I actually used to be a financial journalist in a previous life, so quite different. And I was working in New Zealand and then over in London, got very senior with this sort of real-time, well, at the time, it was a big thing that it was real-time news, but everything's real-time these days. But yeah, got quite senior, and then the parent company went bankrupt, and we all got made redundant. And so decided, good time to have a family, come back to New Zealand, and yeah, the journalism jobs on offer at the time would have been a bit of a step down. And I was kind of thinking, I'm not really sure I'm a journalist, especially a financial journalist anyway. I never meant to be a financial journalist. And yeah, so we had the two most beautiful children ever invented. And I sort of felt like somebody had to document that beauty for the world, and so started photographing them, and then yeah, friends, babies, and it kind of took off from there. So I've always had a bit of an artistic streak. I did study art and stuff at school, and I painted for a while as well. But yeah, it wasn't until we came back to New Zealand my husband said that he would support me if I wanted to make a go of it with photography, and I haven't really looked back since then. I've sort of found that I've always had a lot more sense of meaningfulness out of my job than I ever had in financial journalism. It sort of spoke to my soul a lot more. So yeah, I did the normal MWAC thing, mother with a camera, photographing children, families, weddings, and that kind of thing. Completely self-taught. Well, self-taught in the sense that I did drive myself to study a lot online, but I never did any formal education. Joined the NZIPP, went to all of the conferences, and did all the workshops and all of that wonderful stuff. And I think, yeah, if you've got the drive and the passion, I feel like these days all the information is actually there that you need, really. I said I wasn't going to talk for very long. Here I go. Lately, it's my focus has changed. Probably I don't think it's been about 5 years now since I was photographing weddings, and I'm doing a lot more corporate work these days. So a lot more headshots and stuff, which a lot of people I think is really boring, but I really enjoy it. I get to meet all these lovely people, and a lot of them are really at the top of their game. Chief executives and interesting people, and diplomats and actors, and yeah, I actually really, really love it. And then for the meaning side of the photography, which maybe isn't quite so much there in the corporate world, I volunteer for Heartfelt. So I photograph stillborn babies and babies who aren't going to make it, that kind of thing. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now as well. And then personal work, selling through galleries and art shows and stuff. Kia ora Marama. So I saw Marama down at the art show last weekend. She bought one of my pieces. I think it was very nice. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And yeah, the NZIPP is obviously, well, not obviously, but it has played a really huge part in my career right from the get-go, actually. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So in terms of judging, then, how long have you been a judge?
I think it's about 8 years. 8 or 9 years. I'm sort of losing track a little bit, and I actually can't quite remember how that came about. I suppose I was just asked. I don't think I ever put my hand up and said, I reckon I'll be a great judge.
So more
Yeah.
a shoulder tap.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you enjoy about judging?
I actually really enjoy what I think would probably put a lot of people off judging in some ways, which is being put on the spot. And I think there's this weird side of my personality that kind of thrives on that. And you know, I was talking about the real-time journalism. Like at the time, I'd be in this newsroom, and I was in a newsroom for September 11 actually, and we had skeletal staff because we were being made redundant. Everybody had left, and it was just this intense pressure, and all this news is coming in from everywhere, and you've got to be like the calm center of the storm, find your grounding, and just be really focused and come up with the goods. And I think wedding photography was a bit like that too, and I really enjoyed that. You know, it was stressful, sure, but then there's something about that challenge of it all, and I kind of feel that judging is a bit the same. I get nervous every single time. I still feel a little bit sick before we start because I just feel this big weight of responsibility actually to all of those entrants who are just putting all of, you know, they've given their all to these entries and they're laying it out there, and you're judging it. I mean, how full on is that? And then you're under such intense time pressure to look at the image, evaluate it, come up with all the right words, don't come up with the wrong words, you know, all of that stuff. And so it's kind of scary and intimidating, but at the same time, part of me just really thrives on that pressure. And yeah, I don't think what makes it okay too is that you're absolutely only one of a team. You know, it's real teamwork. So I love that too, and I love the camaraderie between the judges. The conversations are so stimulating, and yeah, I really love the feeling I get when I see an image that comes up and my heart starts pounding. And I go, oh, here we go. And it's just really exciting. And I do love when that happens, being able to like it's hugely satisfying if I'm able to bring other judges up with me and get a better result for that photographer than was going to be the case. And I certainly wouldn't pile in there to do that when I don't believe in the image, obviously, but when I do, it's really satisfying to be able to lift the result for that person. Yeah.
So what is it like when you're like out on a limb like that? So say you're up in the gold range and other people maybe haven't seen quite what you've seen and are scoring a little bit lower. Is there a lot of pressure in that situation, or?
Yeah, I used to just absolutely freak out. I was like, oh my God, I've got it wrong. I've just called this wrong, you know, and I'd be so embarrassed, and I'd just think, oh, you know, I'd take my lead a little bit from the other judges and kind of feel that there was a right answer, a right score. And it didn't actually take me too long before I just thought, no, hang on a second, you know, I was asked to judge for a reason, and I have an opinion, and I gave that score for a reason. Okay, nobody's with me here yet. But I kind of feel in that circumstance like I owe it to that photographer to back myself and to go in fighting for them. And you know, it actually just really could be that oh God, my battery's not charging. Let me just get the power back onto my computer. There we go. It really could be that actually I've seen something that the other judges have totally missed. Or yeah, there can be some little element in there of the story that is making it all hang together for me that they haven't seen. So I shouldn't be so quick to diss myself and feel like I've got it wrong. So yeah, these days I just think it's not about me actually. It's not about my embarrassment or anything like that. It's about that entry. And yeah, I just, as I say, I feel like I owe it to say, if I'm ever in a situation where I have an optional challenge, unless I have sat down, like say I've scored high and then I've gone and I've had another look and I've actually seen something bad that I missed the first time, some technical thing that's like, oh, actually that is a real problem. Unless that happens, I will always take that challenge and go into bat for the image because I feel like I owe it to that photographer. And if I'm not successful, they at least know that somebody really believed in the image, and I think that's really important to hear. So yeah, I've shifted my focus. It's about the image. It's not about me, and I don't care if I make a dick of myself.
I'm sure you never do that. So,
Oh no, I do.
are there any categories that you particularly enjoy judging more than others, or are you a bit of a broad range?
I do like the broad range of things. I'm always quite excited, I guess, when I get put on the student category, just because you never know what you're going to get. Like, it could be absolutely anything, and these guys are really out there pushing the boundaries and doing stuff that none of us have seen before. And as a judge, that's always really exciting. I do love the portrait categories because that's my thing, and creative as well. Again, you just don't know what you're going to get. Illustrative, I quite enjoy too. You know, when you know that somebody is trying to present a story to you, whether you're picking it up remains to be seen. So yeah, I generally, I think I'm a fairly versatile judge who can be put on most categories, but you know, obviously the honours team are trying to put you on areas that are your specialty. But I think I could probably judge anything in a pinch. But there are ones where I sort of feel like, also landscape, for example. I don't do a lot of landscape photography myself, and I think there are a lot of, you know, that's just one example where I think there are a lot of people out there who would be better placed to judge that than I would, for sure. Yeah.
What about if you're judging in a category that maybe you have entered an image into? What's that like, knowing that that's coming up and when you're still judging other people's photos?
Yeah, that's a great question. You'd think that could be quite a problem, eh? Like, and I suppose in an ideal world, you wouldn't have that situation simply because of the potential for that to be perceived in a way that, you know, it's not really, you know, that it's not ideal, is it? But I think for me, the reality is that it's not so much a problem. And I think that's probably the case for many other judges. You know, you get so involved in what you're seeing, what's coming up in front of you, that you kind of, you don't even think about these these things, you know. The only potential thing I can see there, and I haven't really experienced this myself because I think the panel chairs have handled it really well, is if you were super invested in one of your entries, if you really wanted to do well and whatever, and then you either did really well or you really were disappointed, then to be able to then be 100% back in the moment and giving the next entry everything it deserved could be quite hard when you've got that little voice in your head going, oh no, you know, your mind's just on whatever reception your image received. But I think I don't actually recall ever being in that situation, because I think the panel chairs are really good at taking you off before your entries and not putting you on again directly after. So it hasn't actually been an issue for me. So yeah.
And is there anything that you'd say to people that maybe are thinking about becoming a judge, or always wondered about maybe, you know, dabbling in some judging? Anything you'd say?
Yeah, I guess first thing would be to let the NZIPP know of your interest, either through the honours team or, you know, through somebody like Catherine Williams and Tony Carter, who are doing a lot of the judge training, because they can sort of help you make sure that you are able to access any training programs, that kind of thing. Maybe they could get you involved in some print critiquing in your region. That's always a really great place to start learning those skills about formulating your thoughts on the spot, because well, not just formulating, well, I think we all are fairly capable of doing that, but then it's the speaking in a concise way and in a way that's actually really constructive, or hopefully constructive for the entrant. And you know, if the image isn't quite hitting the mark, conveying that in a way that's not going to completely crush that photographer. So learning to deal with that pressure, but you know, that could be a really great start. But yeah, the NZIPP could help people get involved in the region, that kind of thing. Another thing, I guess, would just be to listen to lots and lots of judging. Watch it on YouTube. Both, there's stuff out there from previous IRIS awards in New Zealand, but heaps from Australia as well, from the AIPP before that unfortunately went under. They've got some amazing judges over there. they're just so eloquent. I really, really look up to them. And now they've got the Australian Photographic Prize going on, and so that's in its 3rd year now. I'm actually going to go over to Melbourne next month to help judge that. So really looking forward to catching up with some of those guys again. But yeah, they have some fantastic judges over there who I just put on a complete pedestal, and I love listening to their judging. Perhaps also when you are listening to it, have a bit of a document open and write down. Oh, thanks, Chris. Write down some ideas, some phrases of the way people put things like that might be a little bit delicate, and the way they've managed to step around that to still, look after that photographer and encourage that photographer. Some of the poetry that you hear, it's amazing, so I actually I just completely plagiarize it. Well, like I don't, like at the time I forget all these things and I'm just talking off the cuff. But when I'm listening to the judging, I am writing down this document, and I reread that before every time I judge personally, just because I think it just gets me back in the zone. It reminds me of the possibility of the richness of the language and the vocabulary that's on hand for you. And some also that persuasive language maybe to help bring people up. So yeah, that's definitely something that people can do. And also just to listen, when you're listening to the judging, you can learn about that balance that you need between backing yourself and your own opinion about an image, and then listening to the panel, which is really important. So I think in the early days of my judging, I would say my bit, and then I'd sit there and they would be talking, and I'm thinking in my head about what my comeback is going to be. And it was quite immature of me, and I was using that time to try to strengthen my own point of view rather than to actually listen properly to my colleagues who are bringing this wealth of experience because they have different points of view, and then to go, okay, actually, yeah, I can see this, or and it really is that team effort. So I think that's a tricky one that can take a little bit of experience, because you do need to back yourself, and as I was talking about earlier, accept that you were asked to judge for a reason, but at the same time, don't be arrogant and don't just be stuck in your own head.
Yeah. So awesome. There's quite an art to it, really, isn't there? It's not.
Yeah, and we all get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah. But like you said, that's why we have a panel of 5 judges.
Totally. Yeah.
Discussion and come to a consensus. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that there's a difference between judging digital images versus print images.
Not hugely, actually, because you just you make that switch in your head when the digitals come up, that becomes the new norm, and then you start just judging that. So I wouldn't necessarily say that digitals are disadvantaged in that sense, but I do feel that there is an opportunity with prints when they're done well. There's just this whole extra layer of possibility in which to wow the judges with your presentation. Beautiful printing, beautiful matting. You can do quite creative matting. Doesn't just have to have a thing right around it. You can go right across. You can do a full bleed. All of those things. Something that I learned kind of early. Somebody said to me, and I was like, oh, you're quite right there. Is to go kind of smaller with your image, because then the judges have to come up and they have to get quite personally involved with it. It's like this little treasure, really, and they're really looking at the image and they're kind of drawn into it. So I think maybe when entrants are first starting out, they just think, oh, bigger is better, impact, and they go, oh, full bleed. But they can actually, when it's matted, it can look a little bit cheap sometimes, and there's something that makes it into a bit of a taonga when you mat it and it's a little bit smaller. And
it's the right size.
yeah. Read the specifications. Don't go too small. But I think with the digital, it's just all big and it's there and it's in your face, and it is possibly easier to see flaws in a digital because you don't have any control over the size that it's seen at. But I think the main thing is just that you're not allowing yourself those extra tools for elevating your image above others that the presentation of a printed and matted image provides to you. Yeah. So, but if somebody's looking at this from a cost perspective, or because the flip side of that, which I should really mention, is that if you do a rubbish job of printing or matting, that can be really held against you. So yeah, for those reasons, if you're really not confident, or if you don't have the money to do the prints and matted stuff, I think there's no real disadvantage of going for the digital, other than people can maybe see errors more, like if you've done a bit of cloning and there's this repetition that you didn't really spot or something like that, they can see those. So yeah, that kind of answers it. There's such a learning curve available to you, I think, though, through printing your own work, or even having it printed beautifully, and you're going to go, really? No, I did that, I made that. It's really exciting, and you do learn a lot through printing. So if that was an option that was open to people, I probably would recommend it, but no huge deal if you can't.
Yeah, and like you said, that you have other options of things like your paper choice or the matting that you put around it that can actually, as you said, bring another element to your image as well. Which is, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So has judging changed what you then enter into the awards? Has that sort of helped refine what you're entering, given that you've seen the other side?
Yes, it probably has, but it's kind of hard for me to tease out what influence the judging has had, like being involved in the judging, versus what those years of experience of entering, because they've kind of been concurrent, actually. And so, there's been those years of having the feedback from panels on my own work. But no, I guess you do see such a broad range of work, and you see patterns emerging as to what has impact and what doesn't, sadly, have impact, that you might think, that's amazing. And then as a judge you go, yeah, it's great, but I've seen it so many times, and it's a really high professional standard and good on you. But actually, it's just got to be more than that. It's got to be more to get an award. And I think that's the thing about the Iris Awards in general, or any photography awards like that. It's all about just raising that bar all the time. And that's a really exciting thing to be part of, that you're feeling that you are raising the bar. But it also does mean that something that did well in previous years is not necessarily going to do well, because there's no magic formula like that. It doesn't. There is that beauty and the impact of the new. And so, yeah, as a judge, I think it has made me realise just how sometimes just that bit of originality, how far it goes. And how excited the judges get by that. I think some people might think that judging is a criticism activity or something, but actually, as a judge, that panel, the main goal of all of those judges is to do the very best by every single entry. And it's really exciting as a judge when you can get excited about an image, something comes up and you go, oh, here we go, and you really want these photographers to do well. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just think that anyway, I think I've probably covered it. I'm sorry, I'm waffling. But no, I would like people to realise that, I guess, that that the motivation is to celebrate and to reward, as well as to lift that game, though. So yeah, also to know that there's not a formula, and that you can't just go, oh, that did well last year, therefore it will do well this year, because it is all about continuing to lift the entire game of photography in New Zealand, and internationally, hopefully. Yeah.
And how big a contributing factor is it, that sort of first impact when you see an image, like say the print comes up for the first time and it has that wow factor? Like, how big of an influence is that for you?
I would say that's pretty huge, actually. Yeah, that is when, I said before, my heart starts pounding. If there's something that I really haven't seen before, I just go, wow, that's really creative, or that's just so beautiful. Like, it doesn't always have to be pushing the boundaries in terms of creativity, but sometimes that initial impact, when it's just an exquisite image or a really emotional image that just like brings up all of that emotion, and sort of, whether sometimes that's humor, sometimes, you kind of want to cry, or, whatever that is. I really value that impact that it had on me. And I guess, you know, we do see so many images that if something can turn around and go bang, that is massive. And then you go up to it as a judge and you go, please, please, please hold together. And you're really hoping that you're not going to get up there and see some huge technical flaw that stops you awarding it. Sometimes there's a small technical flaw and you kind of end up arguing as a judge that in the bigger scheme of things just doesn't matter that much, you know, because of all of these other things. So, you know, it's not like it has to be perfect. If it has that initial impact, I think sometimes you will find that judges will successfully keep it up there because of that impact, because of the power of it.
But so then how big a contributing factor then is that sort of storytelling in the in an image? Like, how important is that for you when you're looking at an image?
Yeah, I think storytelling can absolutely elevate things, and that can be either part of that initial impact, especially if it just hits you immediately, then you think, well, that's really successful storytelling. Or sometimes you just sit with the image and then you get the story later and you kind of going, actually, that's really clever. You know, it takes you a little moment. You don't have that long as a judge to do that evaluation. It's, you know, about 30 seconds or something. And so sometimes it's not till you sit down and then you look at it and then you kind of, sometimes you just have this feeling like this photographer is trying to tell me something. Okay, these are the elements. I'm not quite getting it, but you know, I'm sensing the storytelling, and then sometimes it comes together for you, and sometimes you're just sitting there and you're hoping that somebody else is going to explain it because you feel it's there, but you haven't, you know, managed to click onto it fast enough. And that's wonderful when one of your colleagues can go, it's this, and you go, oh, thank you, because I love everything else about it. So no, storytelling is a really big tool, I think, to evaluate things. But you know, the story has to be, there's got to be a genuine aspect to it. Like if it feels really manufactured, that can almost count against you. You know, if you feel manipulated as a judge, I think it's a hard one to explain, but sometimes you just think, you look at that image and you kind of go, I think I'm meant to be feeling this. I'm not, but like I can sort of see that the person's, yeah, it just feels a little bit too set up sometimes. So there's got to be that element of genuineness to it. But if you can tell a story, yeah, it's great. And sometimes, you know, if people have listened to judging, you've probably heard sometimes the photographer will go, I'm not quite getting the story here. Well, okay, the judge, this is my own words that I've used at times. I'm like, I'm not quite getting this, but I feel that the flaw is on, you know, the fault's on me rather than the photographer. It's just because I haven't had enough time, and I sort of, you know, sometimes everything else is hanging together, and I feel like it's my own lacking as a judge, and so I've tried to argue that sometimes, and then fingers crossed someone else will step in and fill in the gaps for me.
So when you're going up to look at an image for the first time, like what sort of things are you looking out for when you're looking at the image to judge it?
There's so many things that you can look at. I think it's a little bit like a triangle, and you've kind of got this bedrock that would be the technical stuff. Lighting, you know, your exposure, your focus, your timing, your posing, styling, if there's a decisive moment or something like that, and then your post-production, how well that's been handled. So that's kind of your base of the apex, I guess, and all of that stuff is really important, but nailing all of that is not necessarily going to get you an award. So then you got to the content, I guess, which is a little bit like what you were just saying about the storytelling or something like that, where you're able to engage more with the photograph and read that next level of meaning into it. And then the apex for me would be originality and creativity. Whenever I see something like that that's really haven't seen before, I you know, and I don't think I'm alone in that, like that just can take you next level. Yeah. And then coming back to the other things like the printing and presentation, that kind of thing. So that initial impact and those things at the apex, those are the ones that you get really excited. I don't tend to, and I think most judges probably wouldn't tend to have their heart start pounding because the exposure is just so perfect, you know. Yeah. They might. I speak for myself.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, like those things need to be there, those technical skills need to be there, and then it's those other things on top which push them up the awards range, really, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And does it affect you when you're going to judge an image that maybe you've seen before, or you feel like you might know who the photographer is? Or is that a time that you might step back off the judging panel?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. If I have ever had any input into that photograph, like major input, because we do mock judgings and stuff in Wellington, but if I have ever, like, something's come up and I've said this would be so much better with this crop, come right into that area there like that, and then the photographer's chosen to do that, they put it in, I'm absolutely going to step off that panel. I probably would have had that conversation with the photographers anyway to say, I will, let me know who you were and I will add you as an exclusion. So, we have this sort of an ethical thing that we all just put down exclusions like that. If we're helping somebody with their iris images, obviously we're not going to be judging those. But then there are ones that pop up in the mock judging, for example, or, you see people post stuff online. I don't really recommend that in the run up to the awards, if you can help it, simply because you can undermine for yourself that initial impact that your image would have had. But if I've seen something at a mock judging, we do that all anonymously, so I don't even know who that photographer is, and I might have seen that image but not really had a lot to contribute to it, so I would stay on the panel for that. I think there's a little bit of a danger, and as I say, like, I wouldn't really recommend putting stuff on social media beforehand, because it can just create an impression amongst judges that they've already kind of seen this before. Like, they might not recognize that exact image, but they might kind of go, oh yeah, I've seen that or whatever. So there's a little bit of a risk there. I think though, if I've seen an image either online or in a mock judging and it's had that initial strong impact on me, I tend to remember that. And so even though I'm seeing the image for the second time, I remember the power of it, and I still award for that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So we've got 2 weeks out until entries close now, so we're getting closer to D-Day. What are some things that people should be doing when they're sort of trying to perfect their images in these last few weeks? So are there any things that they should be particularly looking out for in their images, or anything they should do or not do with their images?
Oh goodness. Things you should be looking out for. I guess getting a bit of feedback from your colleagues is always good. No, sorry, I'm trying to think of like what you should be doing. No, okay. No, one thing I suppose I can think of is that try to print your entries if you can, even if it's just a bit of a rubbish kind of print, and pin them up around your wall and just sit with them a bit and see which ones you are more drawn to over time, because I think just actually physically having that print in front of you and living with it for a while can really help clarify your thoughts. Just as a bit of an aside, I've just done a series of my work, fine art work, and I got it down to 12 this year. Last 2 years ago, my previous series, I didn't do exactly that. I didn't print them out and sit with them, and it was like 31 images in the series, just because I didn't take that time to distill my thoughts about it. And I ended up not wanting to print certain ones of them because I was like, that's just not so strong. But I couldn't see that at the time. It took me a while. So yeah, print the stuff. Also just try hanging them upside down or looking at them in the mirror and go, okay, well, one thing will be any distractions will hopefully leap out at you, but any compositional error, problems can also leap out at you. Things like just looking at that can help you sort of see what is the brightest part of your image, that you might be so the backstory to that, the family or whoever you're doing, and you know all of the emotion that was that they were all feeling, so this is if it's a family or whatever, and that can blind you to the errors in your image. And so when you one of the really key things is what is the brightest part of your image, because that's where a judge's eye is going to go straight to. And some, that might be something like a highlight that's right on the edge of the frame, completely taking them out of the picture from what you wanted them to focus on. So yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, and then I guess a little more broadly, excuse me, some tips for going into the awards would be sort of related to what I was saying before about, that the awards are always about pushing the boundaries and lifting the game. And so that does actually mean that, unfortunately, it can be hard to get an award, and that a bronze is a really big deal. That's an award. Like if you do go in there and all your amazing images are not getting anything, high professional standard or whatever, that's high professional standard. And I know for me, when I started out, that was the biggest thing that I wanted to know. Am I actually shooting at a professional level here? Can I call myself a professional photographer? And great to call yourself an award-winning photographer, sure, but I really just wanted to know that I was professional. And if you're getting high professional standard, kudos to you. That's actually really cool. And then if you happen to get an award on top of that, then wow, because that's saying to you that your entry was above the level that would be expected of a really solid professional. So I think it can be very easy just to go into awards just feeling like the whole thing is just to collect a whole lot of them and to go in and think, well, what was wrong with my image? Like, as if everything should be an award unless something's wrong with it. And sometimes images simply, there's not that you've done anything wrong. It's just that it is what's seen all the time. It is what is expected of a professional, and it doesn't have that X factor that would propel it to an award, So I think having an awareness of that is really valuable, and then being bloody excited if you do get an award. My first year entering, I put 10 images, and I don't know how much it cost me, and I got 1 bronze. I think I might have got a 55 on one of my, well under professional standard. I was so excited to get that bronze, and so I should have been, And you might hear really experienced entrants going, oh, I only got a bronze for that. And you need to set that aside if you're just starting out as an entrant, and go, actually, that's them. Their whole framework has changed because they know that they are capable of doing more, but only a bronze, that just don't even listen to that, because if you're just coming into this whole thing, a bronze is a big deal, and you should be proud.
Absolutely. And how big a thing do you think the feedback that the entrants get through Iris is for building year after year after year?
Oh, absolutely massive. Yeah, I credit that with pretty much all my development as a photographer. Really, it's really been huge for me entering the awards, because your family's always going to tell you it's great, aren't they? And your clients go, oh, we love them, and that is great. There's a lot to be said for that, but it's actually, sometimes it's the judgment of your peers that you want, and for them to tell you it's professional standard or it's an award, but also for them to tell you, hopefully in a constructive way, what you could be doing to lift your game. And then, I've always felt a little bit, so hopefully I'm not going to offend anybody here, a little bit frustrated by people who get a little bit precious about their images, and a little bit offended when they're told, yeah, they're good, but they're not that great. And they go, ooh. And I just kind of think, if you want to grow as a photographer, just be open to it. It's the best thing you can possibly do, is to learn from that critique. And yeah, it might hurt a little bit, but if you can stay open to it and welcome it. I used to feel like I should be paying people for their time to give me that critique. I remember, it was when I tried to join the NZIPP, and I went to this coffee thing. It must have been in 2008, and I took some prints along, and I can't remember these guys. They've all moved on, left New Zealand, half of them now, but I remember being told that they were just shredding them. They were absolutely shredding them. And I was sitting there taking notes, and I was like, oh, this is great, because I kind of felt like I knew that I had some stuff that I'd left at home that they would have liked better. When I heard what they had to say, I was like, oh, you would have liked that one better. I brought the wrong stuff or whatever. But I remember this guy said to me, oh, you're taking this really well, because they were being pretty harsh. And I was like, no, this is awesome. I really felt like I should be paying. One of the critiques was that there were no catch lights in my subject's eyes. I had this beautiful photo of this little girl. She was lovely, but there was just not, like, her eyes were dead, like just black. And yeah, from that day onwards, I never didn't see the cat, you know, whether the subject had catch lights. It was just absolutely massive, like, oh my God, right, turning point for me. And yeah, I just think if you can be open to that, and you do get a lot of that through, you get the whole roller coaster of emotions through the Iris Awards. But it's, for me, I just credit that with pretty much all my growth as a photographer. I really do. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, especially for first time entrants, isn't it? You know, it's lovely to be able to go, I've won all these awards, but actually the thing that you're going to keep growing with is that feedback that you're getting on your images, and that
Yeah,
tidbits, you know, can be really helpful for improving.
totally.
Award.
And back when I first started entering, there wasn't actually the requirement to give any feedback at all. So you would just get a score, and they were trying to crack through the images really quickly, and they would just give the score, and then they'd say, next print, please. And so you put all that time and effort and all that love into this entry. And there was a bit of a joke in the industry, because it used to be that 70 and above was a bronze. And there was a bit of a joke. People were thinking, I'm going to make a t-shirt, 69, next print, please. And you go, oh my God, it's so close. And why, you know. And then the NZIPP introduced the thing that actually, you know, the judges somebody needed to give some sort of constructive criticism at the end, feedback, well, how the print could have done better. And sometimes I have to say, people don't do a great job of that. You know, you're on the spot, and sometimes as a judge, somebody will say something and you kind of think, should I also pipe up here because I can see something else, or it wasn't maybe that helpful, you know, I don't know. It's hard when you're on the spot like that. So if you ever do feel that was a little bit esoteric, you don't understand what they said, or that it actually just wasn't that helpful, go and ask any of those judges that was on your panel for your image, because they will be more than happy to talk about the image with you afterwards. And absolutely approachable lot. Everybody is, you know, that's what we're all there to do. And maybe there wasn't so much time to formulate the thoughts, but if you come up to them afterwards with their image label, they will give you that feedback that you might have felt that you didn't get. Yeah.
So has anyone got any questions that they wanted for Catherine? If you do, please feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, we've got a couple of images, Catherine, if you don't mind having a look through, and maybe you can give some tips. These ones aren't ones that are going to be entered into this year's award, so you don't have to worry about that, but just some general kind of feedback that people might find helpful. So I will try and share my screen quickly. Please ignore all the millions of things on the back of the desktop. Try and keep it. Can everyone see that? So anything that you think maybe the photographer has done well, that, you know, people could be looking for, or things that, you know, could have elevated it further?
Cool. Okay, so what I see with this image first is obviously a really bold use of light and shadow. I think I'm explaining the obvious here probably, but you know, this photographer has created quite a striking and memorable portrait of this woman. Things that I think they've done well. The light is nicely three-dimensional, molding the face there, and they've posed her well. Obviously, like for me, one of the biggest things here is those elbows and the play with elbow on the left there with the little white triangle, and then you've got the dark triangle on the right there, and then you've got the light triangle in the shadow, and then finally the arm going out there. So it's sort of a nice flow across the image there. And I think the photographer has also posed the woman in quite a flattering way. There's quite a nice curve to the body there. In terms of improving the image, I do think that the slight blobbiness of the clothing on under her right arm, so on the left of the image there, is kind of breaking up that flattering shape of her body, and is also being accentuated in the shadow with these quite strange things that are coming out under the arm and the shadow there. So I think it's a very simple image, and unfortunately that for me is slightly breaking up the simplicity and the power of it. But I think the photographers created a beautiful, and as I say, quite memorable image that this client would love. And you know, it's very flattering and quite striking.
Right, now I can't see how to get to the next one. Hang on. We're going to get smaller.
Am I allowed to take my 30 seconds like I'm actual judging panel? Okay, I'm just going to start talking at the risk of sounding silly. Okay, so I think this this image has initial impact in terms of the word that sort of pops into my mind is it's quite exquisite. You know, it's very delicate. She's very delicate. She's very fine boned, and then you've got this gauzy fabric around her. It's a constructed image that's been well done. You've got the repetition of the circular shapes within the oval frame, but then that's also sort of echoed in her hair, which is rather lovely. Beautiful light on her face, a bit of shadow to give it that three-dimensionality, but it's not at all overpowering, and it keeps the sort of delicacy of the image. In terms of the impact, I find her expression a little blank, and she's also looking out of the frame, and that's not a problem, but I think in terms of strengthening the impact, if she was looking at me and somehow engaging me, I feel like that would have just added an extra level to this image. But I think it's been really beautifully handled, and I think it's quite a lovely idea, these layers and layers of gauze, you know, delicate fabric with such a delicate kid.
Awesome. Sorry, if anyone is putting something in the chat, I can't quite see it when we've got it on full screen, but I will have a look once we've gone.
I can actually see the chat, so I could give you a bit of a heads up if I need to. Okay, right. Have to admit to being a little confused by this image. I think it's quite beautiful, the light on him and everything, and the peaceful nature of the image. I have seen this kind of thing before with one subject in focus and then the same person behind, either, you know, looking away, or sometimes that like they're screaming or whatever. And I've seen it quite a few times over the years, and sometimes it has more of a clear story than it does for me in this particular image. Maybe it's like elements of him, but then I don't know what they are, you know. This is one of the ones where I'd love to sit and listen to what the others have to say about this. You know, he's got his eyes closed in that one on the left. He does have quite a strong dark shadow coming across his mouth and that blurry one on the left, which I find a little distracting. Then the one on the right is looking at me, and then the far right, he's sort of falling away. Yeah, I can appreciate it, but I'm not really getting a strong picture. And I also feel a little bit like I want to crop down from the top. He feels quite low in the frame. It's sort of a panorama, but then it's got all this extra space at the top, which I don't think is adding to it. And I'm kind of going off there. Like his eye line is pretty much centered to the image, and I think it might have been a stronger composition cropped in from the top. Okay. Beautiful energy. Yeah, beautiful energy in this photo, and also a beautiful sense of connection. I feel like every subject in this image is really quite into it, and you've got that wee boy is the focus. He's the youngest in the family, and they're all really focusing on him and supporting him, and he's loving that. I think the depth of field has been handled really nicely here. Technicals, there's top of Dad's head and each of the boys' hair, and a little bit on Mum's forehead there is a little bit blown out, so maybe a little bit more control in the light. I mean, obviously this person's outdoors and probably doesn't have that much control, but I think the fact that Dad doesn't have that much hair is sort of like his head is really quite bright there. The other thing I'm kind of looking at here is I can't see where Dad's right leg is. He doesn't have he's only got one leg. So yeah, unless I'm obviously really missing something there. But I was sort of looking at this and I'm going, I think there's been a bit of compositing here, and I should be able to see another leg for Dad, and I can't. So that's a bit of an issue for me. But yeah. Again, this is maybe one of those ones where you look at the, you know, there's some technical things, but my first reaction, which is what I came to first, was a really beautiful energy. and I think the family would be happy. I'm not sure if it would be quite an award level or not. It could well still be, actually, if somebody else didn't notice the leg. Yeah, no, it's a lovely sense of engagement, and that's what it's all about for family photography, isn't it? Cool. Now, this is one of those areas, you know, before when I said, like, I'm not a landscape photographer, I'm also not a newborn photographer. I love newborn photos, and so sometimes my friend who is a newborn photographer, she's like, you're always reacting with the emotion, whereas I know how they did that, and I do. She's a lot more critical. So I think this is lovely, so peaceful, and I know how hard it is to pose a newborn, and I kind of think this photographer's done a really cool job of that. Those two little legs, little scoops, you know, when you blur your eyes, you've got some really lovely shapes going on there. Those legs are beautiful, and I think the light on the face is lovely. That hand is delicate, and it doesn't mask the key bits that you want to see of the mouth and the eyes there. I like the way the photographer has used a bit of asymmetry here in the little nest that they've created, in the sense that you've just got that little spray of the ferns on the bottom right catching the light, and there are ferns on the top left, but it's not symmetrical. I like that extra weight that's propping up the baby there. In terms of improving it, I'm finding a couple of wee distractions there. The little tuft of the wool on the lower leg there, coming off the toe, is kind of breaking what I see as quite a strong positive in the image, which is that little shape, and then it's taking me off the end of the toes there. This is getting really picky, but down the bottom there of the circle, the bottom left, there's a little twig or something catching a bit of highlight there that I would just probably have cloned out myself. And again, just maybe tidy up on the top leg, that little bright tuft of wool. But those are such minor things. I think the palette is working really well. This is a really peaceful image, and I think the photographer has posed it beautifully, styled it beautifully with that asymmetry of the little nest that they're in.
We got one more.
Yeah, this is quite a good one to bring up. So I'm screwing up my face. Okay, because when I screw up my face, what I see here is the highlights created by her head and the arm, which is actually quite a stiff arm. And so this is one of those ones where I think if you printed out this image and you flipped it upside down, you would see of the arm and then the head, and you don't so much actually see the curve of the belly, which is what it's all about. So I think that there's a little bit of an issue there, but I think also the lighting in this doesn't feel so controlled. There's an awful lot of light hitting the blonde hair there, and not so much at all on her face. Her face feels quite underlit. She's got a beautiful expression, but the bit of her face that is catching the light is really the nose and the chin, and it's not so much around her eyes there. I think in terms of posing, this is a very standard maternity pose to, sort of bring the head down and have the hand tucked under the belly there. So while I think the client would be very happy with this is one of those ones where you think, I've seen it before. And when you've seen something like that before, you really have to look at those technicals. And I do feel the lighting's letting this down, but also things like just the hand, it's a little unevenly lit. And then the fact that that thumb is popping up and you've got that dark thumbnail, it actually is breaking the line of the belly there. And this is a maternity image. It's really should be all about the belly. But I don't feel that the lighting and the posing is quite doing what it needs to do here to really elevate this image. Also really quite bright, yeah, flip it upside down and look at where the highlights are, because they're on the hair and they're on the front of the arm, and then that one finger on the hand. So it's kind of not all gelling together as well as it could.
Wonderful, Catherine. Thank you for that. Let me bring these back in. Oh, now I've lost Zoom. Where's it gone? Stop sharing. There we go. Wonderful. Right, let me just check chat. Was there anything anyone else had that they wanted to bring up for Catherine? Probably pretty good.
I quite like Chris's comment there. One thing I've learned is that if you listen to a judge critiquing lots of other images and you agree with their view 9 times out of 10 on other people's work, the chances are if you don't agree with the feedback from them on your image, it's probably more about you than the judge. That's not a bad little benchmark, really. Did you think they were talking rubbish about other people's work too? Because if you did, then fair enough. But if you didn't, then yeah. What's this? We should all be panicking. I don't know what I just said when you said that.
I think that's when
Probably
we
a while. That was right at the beginning.
No.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah, anyone
weeks
just
ago.
feel free to unmute yourself if it's faster, just to have a discussion rather than typing stuff in the chat. If anything I said wasn't clear, or you'd like me to elaborate on anything, or just anything at all you can think of, or not. Panicking was around. Oh yeah, 2 weeks to go. Yeah. Fair enough too. Quite right.
I know Chris has had his images up on the wall for the last 6 months where he's been looking at them and reprinting them. So you shouldn't be panicking, Chris. Awesome. But there's nothing else. Thank you again, Catherine. It was really wonderful to hear your opinion and listening to your the dedication really that you're putting in and how much of yourself you're giving when you're doing this judging. It was wonderful to hear from someone that's sitting on the other side, and as I said, you said earlier, putting all their emotion and thoughts and time into producing these images, and to know that the judges really are taking that job so seriously and putting that thought and care into not only how they're judging but how they're then responding back to be able to help us to grow is really amazing. So I really appreciate the time you've given us tonight. And yeah, well, yep, other people also agree.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. I can see that. Thank you. No, you just you put that really well. I think it's just like about asking for critique in general. You really are putting yourself out there, aren't you, when you're sharing your work, and it is a total roller coaster sometimes, but it's worth every second of it. And yeah, just stay open to it, and don't be too discouraged either if you don't get the results you want. It's not gospel. Like as I say, one judge's opinion is not gospel, but also the panel's opinion isn't gospel. You quite probably would have got a different result with a different panel, and sometimes it's actually the luck of the draw, and it's a bit of a game. Like you actually only need one person to spot something that the others have missed, and maybe nobody does, and you go, they all missed it, and you have to, in that case, still believe in yourself. Like, yes, take on the feedback, but sometimes just stick to your guns and go, they just missed it, and that's all right too. As long as you're listening to the general feedback, but don't give up necessarily just because you got a dud panel. Judges seem a bit less scary now. Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah. And what I said earlier, they do actually have the best interests. Like the whole system, not only the judges, but the whole algorithm of the IRIS judging, like the scoring is all geared towards taking whatever result will give the best outcome for that print. So sometimes it's based on an average of 3 or an average of 4. Sometimes it's, well, I don't know. Cindy would be able to tell you better than I would all the ins and outs, but it's all set up so that depending on what those initial scores come out from, it will boost your chances. So it's working in your favor, even though it might not feel that way sometimes.
Well, best of luck, everyone. You've still got 2 weeks. So as Amber was saying the other day, that's still plenty of time to get yourself some golds. So we're back on Wednesday night. We've got Chris Anderson joining us on Wednesday night. If anyone else wants to come and listen to some more top tips from another judge, would be wonderful. And otherwise, best of luck, everyone.
Yeah, don't listen to Chris. He's amazing. He's one of my Aussie judges who's just so eloquent that I always just learn so much from every year. So definitely recommend that. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and really looking forward to seeing what you come up with this year.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Take
Catch you
care.
later.
Bye-bye.